Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our session for Integrate Online, presented by West Virginia University Reed College of Media, which offers renowned online master's degree programs in marketing communications. So thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we'll be discussing a really important topic on our panel session is titled Navigating a New Reality in Public Relations, COVID-19, and we have two amazing guests with us. So first off, I'd like to introduce Courtney Hughes, who is the Communications Consultant Client Product Group at Dell, and Eric Winkfield, Public Affairs Manager at Pepco Holdings. I would love to take a moment to have Eric and Courtney introduce themselves to you all, and then make sure to, at this time, for all the attendees who are present, to mute your microphones, and if you have questions, you can use the chat function. So I will turn it over to Eric and Courtney to introduce themselves.
Sure. Courtney, ladies first.
I knew it. It is definitely my honor to be here with you guys today. To Karen's point, I lead communications for the product group at Dell Technologies. We actually make the computers, the group that I lead communications for. And I've been at Dell for 8 years. I am a West Virginia native, born in Beckley, West Virginia, and got both of my degrees from WVU. So it's really an honor to be here to give back and to help all of us in this field as we, continue to navigate this climate.
Great. And thank you, everyone, for joining today's session. And thank you, Chad and Stephanie and Karen, for having me as well. And so my name is Eric Winkfield. I'm a Public Affairs Manager at Pepco Holdings, specifically focused in the DC metro area of the company. And so I am originally from Miami, Florida. However, I am a WVU IMC grad, class of 2016. And currently in my role, I am responsible for creating, navigating, as well as measuring our stakeholder engagement, advocacy, and digital strategy for the company. And so a lot of what I do is make sure we're advancing and educating our elected officials and our stakeholders and business leaders on the infrastructure project, regulatory issues, as well as just the state of affairs of the company to our key publics.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eric and Courtney, for being here. Again, I think this is going to be a really wonderful conversation. And I'm just going to, get the ball rolling here with our first question. So again, our topic is navigating the new reality in public relations in COVID-19. And so during this time, consumers are paying close attention to how brands are reacting to major events in response to world health issues, activism. And so what stories are your brands telling to respond to this desire for statements and impact? Could you share that with our community today?
Yeah. You can go ahead and go first, Eric.
Sure, we'll have to do that. And so right now, with everything going on with the pandemic, as well as with so many things happening in the country today, one thing that our company, Pepco, as well as our parent company, Exelon, has put in the forefront is that our customers and our communities that we serve are paramount, and that's where all of our resources and attention is going to ensure that our customers feel, one, they have access to a safe and healthy environment, being that because we do provide electricity to customers in the District of Columbia, as well as the surrounding communities in Maryland. Electricity is an essential service to ensure people have a safe and healthy environment. And so throughout this pandemic, we have just really shifted all of our focus into ensuring that customers have those essential needs. And when we think about that more, to what businesses need to do is, looking at what is your footprint as an organization or as a company, and what actions do you take or should you be taking to ensure that your customers or ensure that your stakeholders are more so protected, right? Because right now consumers are looking at brands to see what is the message we're going to say, and not only what is it we're going to say, what actions are we going to follow up the things we've said we're going to do. And so that's really, really important right now, and that's kind of what we're focused on.
Yeah, I agree with you, Eric. It is, and I think companies also need to be very aware you need to do more than just make a statement. You see a lot of canned statements going around, being posted. being pushed out and it's canned. For those of
Mhm.
us in the profession, we know what canned statements look like. And when there's no action, no backup plan, no donation, no investment in diversity and inclusion in your companies, you're kind of straddling the fence to appease your consumers because you're worried about your flow, your revenue, versus, taking a stand, standing together, not only together as a company, but together with the community and the partners and the customers that you serve, is a very,
Right.
very important message that I feel like every company needs, they should be talking about and saying, because it's more than just a dollar. These things are impacting our communities. We have team members who are affected, families who are impacted in so many different ways. And so, taking that stance is absolutely important for every company.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've
Yeah.
also seen that, with the conversations online, like everyone's saying, okay, you have a statement, but like, what's the follow up? Like, what are you going to be doing? Like, you have this social media post, but what's the next step? And so I'd be curious, Eric and Courtney, has there been a business or an agency or a brand you feel has really kind of been, kind of like the brand to follow and say they have the statement that they have the impact and they're taking action for the future on addressing these challenges head on?
There are a few that come to mind, but before I start naming out brands, I think it's really important to focus on the actions that should be taken, right? And I think at first we need to look at what organizations are doing, taking actions to listen to what's happening and what's being said, and try to understand the feelings and the perspectives that are being advanced and brought to the table. And then what are companies doing to create safe spaces for their employees and their customers, where they can feel they have a place they can go, where they will not be like something negative or negatively impacted for being exactly who they are. I recently just read about how Starbucks, so a colleague of mine, Nicola Shaw, she's the Global Chief Diversity Officer for Starbucks. And one of the things that Starbucks did was immediately on yesterday, they held a partner meeting with all of their employees and partners just to shore up and allow their employees to know that they are committed to not only diversity and inclusion, but to ensuring that their employees have a safe space to work. Now, we all remember just last year, the big hiccup that Starbucks had and their learning lesson, where they had to shut down their stores. And I think so some analysts said that was a bit extreme for the organization to do, but most of the country and most of the world felt that was the right thing to do, because it takes those extreme actions to kind of level set, reset, and making sure that you are setting a standard and you're making it very clear the principles and the principles and the pillars that you say your company is standing for. Like, if D&I is a part of your core statement or your mission statement or one of your core values, you have to when the rubber meets the road and something happens in modern day society, it's at that point where you have to prove not only to your employees but also to your customers what your actual stance is in diversity and inclusion. And kind of seeing that Starbucks took that immediate action to kind of just say, okay, we're going to have a conversation. And we just had this issue. We just had an issue about race and racism just last year, but we're going to do this just to remind everybody where we stand on it. And that's something that really comes from the top down, Karen. And that's and you see organizations that really, from the CEO on down, in the C-suite, really embraces and actively works on fostering more diverse and inclusive environments in the organization. Those are your organizations where you're seeing that are really making it through this time, and consumers are really looking at to be leaders in this space.
No, I absolutely agree with you, Eric. It's yes, sweetheart. It's in that C-suite is where a lot of the decisions are made. The company strategy, your messaging, how you stand, the vision that you have for your company. A lot of those decisions, all of those decisions are made there.
Right.
And to your point, Eric, of having it's nice, it's real cute to have a talking point about diversity inclusion, but what actions do you have behind it? Dell Technologies rolled out this very ambitious 2030 goals. of having 50% of the workforce be women, you know, having 30% of all team members be of color, you know, 15% of color, of Black and brown, and manage it. It's, you know, those things of knowing that like we're not where we want to be. And knowing that every company knows that that is actually a culture change within your own company that you were implementing and doing. And it takes time and it takes a lot of work from everybody. You know, and even with the activism and everything that's going on, it was outside of the canned statements, it was really refreshing to see a lot of companies actually take a stand and say, this is wrong. And, you know, we're going to do our part in helping everybody, us move forward, you know, understanding that we are the change. But if you're, you know, you have to take a stand somewhere with that.
Absolutely.
And then one more point, because Courtney said something that was really important. I really, I believe that these type of conversations, we need to leave with some tangible walk-away things people can take back to your organization. And when it comes to not only the recent events with what's going on around racism, but also this global pandemic with COVID-19, one question that all communicators need to be asking ourselves is, what actions should our company or our organization or our brand be taking to be supportive, right? What actions is our company and our brand taking to ensure that we have internal alignment as well as external appreciation and support to the communities that we serve? And so when we talk about this issue right now, it's like, what is your statement? But like, does your actions and the things that your company does align with that statement? Because if it does not, unfortunately, I see it time and time again on social media, how organizations and brands are shredded apart when the proof does not match up what you're putting out there. What I have for everybody to take back is like, what is my company or organization stake in this game, and how can we make a better situation?
Right.
Yeah.
And sorry, Courtney.
Sorry, I had one more thing to add to that. You know, as communicators, whether it's internal, executive, external, you know, also asking the question of, do your team members, your employees, do they trust you? Do they trust their leader? Do your customers and partners trust you? That trust it's never been more important, you know, dealing with the COVID-19 and the pandemic that we're in, as well as dealing with the activism that we have about the mistreatment of Black and African Americans in our society. You know, do you have that trust? That trust is very, very hard to get, and it is really easy to lose. And so, you know, asking that question and, you know, being honest about where you stand as a company, where your executive stands, CEO, COO, whoever it is, you know, because we draft the communications, you know what I'm saying? And one thing is never being afraid to show just a little bit of vulnerability. It makes them human. It also makes them very, very relatable to not only your partners, but to your customers, to the consumers that are watching you, literally watching you, watching what you do, because they buy into the brand. And, you know, everything we do, we write for our executives to say is a reflection of the brand that the consumers buy into. And so just keeping those things in mind too.
Well, this really kind of brings together a question that we got from Mike Fulton, and he asked, you know, this really ties what Courtney and Eric, you've mentioned, but it kind of takes, you know, also extends it a little bit too with what about recent examples of employees who walk out of their job sites due to corporate actions and inactions, and what role do you think employees and customers play in that? So we talked a little bit about the customer, you know, like in terms of their response, but what are your guys' thoughts on what Mike is talking about?
Sure. Courtney, you want to go first?
No, you can go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I would start. One, we have to, as organizations, we have to create not only when we put out statements and like internal messages to like what we do and who we are and what we won't tolerate, it's really important that we remember as communicators that our job, and in 2020 more than ever, our job is not one way, it is two way. So yes, when you put your message out there, what mechanisms are you putting in place where your employees feel they can come and have a safe place where they're listened to and their thoughts and their opinions are being taken into consideration? But one thing that Pepco did, well, Pepco Holdings did with all three of our service territories. So we have a service territory in the Washington, D.C. metro area. We have one called Atlantic City Electric in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And then we also have one called Delmarva Power that's in Delaware and in the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And our C-suite team, they brought on a consultant to really help listen to different affinity groups, not only the affinity groups, but people of different races and backgrounds, and pulled them together in like small pockets. And they held these focus groups across the entire company. And what they were doing was they wanted to listen to understand what was the authentic experience of these individuals, whether they be LGBTQ, whether they be Black or African American, whether it be Latino or Hispanic. They wanted to understand what was their authentic experience. And the only reason an executives within each one of those focus groups was to demonstrate just the seriousness of like the companies wanted to listen and hear and take action. But listening is only one part of the step. And the second step was they had to take that feedback, and they had to have hard conversations with themselves at the C-suite level and say, we do not have this experience. We do not know these life experiences that people go through, but we were bold enough to listen and hear what our employees are going through. And because we hear them, what are some of the things that we can do to foster and create a more inclusive and a more comfortable environment for our company? And so, Mike, to your question, it's really on brands, organizations, on companies, whatever you may have. If you want your employees to really stay with you, it's really understanding the value of their voice and then taking action. Like when somebody tells you something, especially something to make you better, taking the appropriate steps and demonstrating that you really value their feedback and making even the smallest changes to ensure and demonstrate that you heard what they had to say.
Yeah. And to Eric, your point of setting up those spaces, the one thing I think as communicators we often leave out is the frozen middle, which is what the middle management. Most team members only interact with their manager. It's very rare that they're interacting with the president of their organization or the SVP, right, or the executive leadership team. They don't really interface with them that much. And so, I would set up these brown bags, director and above meetings, where the leader would have a director and above call with all of his directors. That way they can go have those conversations with their team, and they're equipped with the right information. They know how to answer certain questions because certain decisions are even made way above their pay grade, and right. So making sure that everybody is informed. During like times of crisis, there's not really a such thing as like over communicating. You might be over communicating using that specific vehicle, and you change and tailor the vehicle to keep down the noise internally. So where exactly. Your emails might just come from your CEO, your COO, and maybe HR. But you utilize other vehicles to keep that communication going within your own teams and your organizations. So whether it's brown bags, whether it's virtual office hours, if you have these brown bags, you change the criteria for each brown bag, whether you have all women in one, all African Americans, all Latin, the Latinos in your organization during one. That way you can get a better holistic view of how the people on your team, in your organization feel. And always making sure that information gets put up to those who make the changes and those who make the decisions, so that they know that you actually care. Because one thing a lot of people don't realize, it's extremely hard to be Black in America and professional and having to go to work with all of this going on. Luckily right now, most of us aren't out driving, but just the simple thought of the making it home safe from work, There's a
Mhm.
whole lot of things that, to Eric's point, creating this safe space to have these extremely hard conversations that are always going to be hard for us to have. But no matter what company you work for, we're not going to be able to move forward and move your company forward and move us forward as a society if we don't have those hard conversations with each
Mhm.
other.
Absolutely. And it's been interesting too, again, like I feel like I'm in kind of a unique situation where I'm at two universities, West Virginia and University of Louisville. And it's been interesting to see how universities have been, communicating to both internally, their faculty and staff and students, but then also in their communities. And so it's so important to have these conversations and basically say, okay, we're going to have these initiatives and we're going to take action on making sure that everyone has those spaces to communicate, to ask questions and to help and be inclusive. And that actually brings forward another great question from Allie, kind of looking at the diversity inclusion policies. And so she asked, how do companies need to go above a superficial policy and statistics on DEI to an area where diversity and inclusion is clearly seen vividly and measured clearly in their vision and mission as behaviors and actions? So what can we do to kind of make sure that what we have in these policies really is throughout our organization and our brand?
I would say, to go above what she asked, the superficial
Mm-hmm.
policy of just having it in place, because, D&I has become a very trendy word.
Mm-hmm.
And it's absolutely action. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, I would say, not attainable, but it's that uncomfortable step above that pushes you to do more.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too that I would also, as us for communicators, we're there to consult, to ask the hard questions, to ask the questions that other people won't speak up about. That's why we're in the room, to make everyone in there better and answer these questions that we know our customers and consumers are going to be wondering and asking. And I mean, one thing that always sticks out to me too, I've noticed and have had a whole lot of conversations with other Black and brown people in the field, is they will lump the minority percentage together. you know,
Mhm.
20% Black and brown, 30% or 50%. It's not even really broken up. Okay, what is our goal for Black? What is our goal for brown? It's not. And it's grouped together. And that's one thing that I feel like we all need to actually push our companies that we are writing for and supporting for, to that right there lets your team members know internally that you're serious about this. Because you just say it's 10%. You could easily have 8% brown, 2% Black, and you met your 10%.
Mhm.
But you're one, that's only 2%. And so, pushing them to actually be very specific in those goals, in the steps that were taken. What are you doing with recruiting? What are you doing, with university relations? And getting in internships. What are you doing with, the Black Engineers Organization, the different Black journalist organizations that can actually roll into communications and
Mm-hmm.
advertising in the different parts of your comms department?
Mhm.
What are you doing to actually outreach, to put yourself out there to reach those goals?
Yeah. I totally agree with Courtney, and Courtney had some amazing nuggets there. But I will also add, when it comes to going above and beyond, it requires you to be bold. Courtney mentioned being bold and honest and authentic and vulnerable earlier. And if you're trying to, when you're being bold in the sense is like, yes, we're supposed to ask ourselves the tough questions, but sometimes when we ask ourselves the tough questions, we find ourselves in these environments where people don't feel comfortable, saying the answer because they might say the wrong thing, right? And I want us to really get away from being so scared to say the wrong thing, just to go ahead and say it, and then creating a space where we feel comfortable so we can go ahead and be able to correct it. Because you don't know what you don't know. And until you put it out there and you ask for like the clarity and you ask for how can we make this better, it will never happen. And one thing that I see organizations do quite often is we find these formulas for diversity targets or diversity numbers, and we manipulate them. And it's really a horrible thing to do, because yes, your numbers look good, but when you take away the numbers, and just actually look at your organization, does your organization look like the numbers that you're reporting? And so I definitely say yes, look for the quantitative, but also do not slack on the qualitative. The qualitative and the quantitative, they work hand in hand. And so I would say, so what to do? Ask bold questions, ask tough questions, constantly ask the question, right? Diversity and inclusion should never just be a quarterly or a month or a seasonal type of thing. You can be asking about how we're doing with diversity and inclusion as often as you can. I know at Exelon as well as Pepco Holdings, our CEOs and our senior leadership team, that is a standing agenda item where they're asking, they want to know how we're performing in D&I, like, and what does performance look like? How many promotions have been? How many people from diverse backgrounds have been promoted? How many, like, do we have? If not, what is our solution there to fix that? Another thing I would say is, if your company does not have opportunity to either like a formalized mentorship or sponsorship programs, so folks of color can have opportunities and access to opportunities to advance in your company, that is one tangible thing you can go ahead and take to your company back tomorrow and say, we need this. We need to figure out how do we create a pipeline of talent, of diverse talent that moves up. Because one thing that we discount is that we look at maybe like where somebody they might not be able to fit in a certain crew or a certain team, but it's not that they don't fit, they can't do the work, because they're very much so maybe well capable to do the work. It's just the way they express themselves might not align with the way one group may express themselves. And it's being open to understanding, like, why does that person or why does that group of individuals express themselves that way? And quite frankly, it might be able to really foster stronger thinking where you can understand how different people express themselves and do different things. And so those are a couple of thoughts that I had on that end. But as far as going above and pushing me up, it's really like asking yourself, like we have a baseline. How can we push ourselves even further to really, really max out what we can really do?
These are such great insights, Eric and Courtney. And I just wanted to give, it was more of a comment from Emily that I absolutely share. She just said that, she said, it's so valuable to have your professional expertise for these PR conversations, but also your personal voices on current events. And that really provides additional value. So on behalf of everybody, and thank you so much for this comment, Emily. Thank you again, Courtney and Eric, for sharing these points. I think this is really such a great conversation. And I think all of us, can definitely go back to our organizations and companies, universities, and make sure that we have these conversations to take action, in addressing these. So thank you, Emily, for that comment. I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit because, like talking, about working from home. I mean, some of us have been doing this for a few months. I know it online, for West Virginia, like all of our classes are online, but I'd be curious, Courtney and Eric, to hear your thoughts. In a work from home world, how have your companies adapted to this new style of working? And do you think that this will have a continued impact on the future of the industry, workplace?
I would say that's one thing I can say. Dell Technologies has been extremely forward thinking in the work from home. We call it connected workplace. Over 10 years of connected workplace, of people working from home in some way, shape, or form, whether it's 1 day a week, 3 days a week, you do 4/10s, or you work from home 100%, just some type of connected flexibility. So it was a lot easier for us to take the majority of everybody home across the globe in a day. They were very, very forward thinking in that way. I do think, yes, sweetheart. I do think that I'm hoping that this also has other companies thinking about how work gets done and where it gets done. There was this really antiquated approach to working from home, as if because I'm at home, I'm not working. It's just where I'm sitting at is different. My productivity isn't down. All of the work is still getting done. I'm just not in an office. And so us being in this pandemic challenges that thought process in how people thought about work and how leaders thought about work. Thinking that people in the office are more successful than people working from home. And, now everybody is on an even playing field because everybody is at home.
Yeah.
That's for your eye.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
sorry.
Okay. All good.
We're doing it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I think, this is going to push companies to think differently, to change different policies. You might see footprints being reduced, especially with COVID-19 and where we are, social distancing. You're not going to be able to pack as many people into an office as you did before. You're going to have to completely restructure and figure out, okay, do we have certain people in on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, certain people in on Tuesday, Thursday, because you can only have a certain percentage. You have to rechange layouts and how things look, to comply, to keep your team members safe during that time. And the other thing too is this will also change the way that companies recruit, because you would have like this large talent pool that's global all over the world. And when you wanted somebody to be in a certain location, that shrunk your talent pool, because to be quite honest, depending on where it was, some people didn't want to live there. They didn't want to move there. It's not like I can't do my job anywhere else. And so now with this should open up the talent pool for the talent that companies are trying to chase after, because, well, you know what? You can do your job from DC. You can do your job from Atlanta. You don't have to be at headquarters. And so that right there will open up the talent pool for, there are just such great minds out there that I felt like companies were blocking themselves off from, because, well, we want you to relocate. So.
Yeah, so I'm going to tackle it a little bit differently from the utility aspect, right? So I work for a public utility. We serve electricity in the District of Columbia and our surrounding areas of Maryland. And so I'm going to tackle it from how we do our external affairs, how we do our work, how we're communicating with our employees, and the different buckets of employees that we have, as well as our virtual experience, right? And so starting with external affairs, my role specifically, we have had my role is also very community focused and community facing. And so I spend probably the majority of my time doing like one-to-one face-to-face meetings with communities in the District of Columbia and Maryland, as well as interfacing with elected officials and key publics, right? In this COVID-19 situation, we have had to totally shift all of those interactions, community meetings, community hearings, any type of briefing or stakeholder notification. We had to completely shift that to either Microsoft Teams, a Zoom, or a hosted conference call, if you will. When the pandemic first hit and we got the orders to work from home, one of the things that we had to do was we had to update our elected officials every other week to make sure that they were abreast and informed about the actions and the steps that Pepco was taking to ensure that customers had safe, reliable, and affordable energy during at a time where folks cannot go anywhere but stay home. One of the things we had to do is, normally folks get their bills every month, their electricity bills every month. We had to suspend disconnections, as well as suspend late payment fees and things like that until the foreseeable future, where there was a life past COVID, and which right now we don't see what that is right now. But when it comes to how we do our jobs, we've had to, it's really been amazing, because we had to really gel together more as a team to understand, for those team members who may not be as technological savvy or comfortable, how do we work together and collaborate to get folks to that place so we continue to deliver a service. And so our company is interesting because we are a utility. We have employees who are out in the field, like working on overhead lines, working on underground lines, continuing to do work on the electric system that is needed to maintain and continue to build a healthy and robust system that is reliable. They cannot work from home. They still have to go out and be out in the communities. And so what we've had to do was we had to ensure their safety and communicate safety to them. Is we had to set up what safety looks like during a pandemic. We had to set up certain policies and procedures with our frontline employees as well as our contractors, so they understood what that, like how to remain safe even while doing your work out in the outside space. And as far as so we also have our business services, if you will, so that's everybody from like people like me in external affairs or communications and legal and regulatory. All of us had to shift all of our work to being home. But however, we're a very collaborative company. And we're so used to meeting and interchanging and working about different things, but we've had to really focus on our virtual platform to really collaborate. We've Microsoft Teams has been an amazing friend to us, because we're able to collaborate and work on things that need to be ultimately continue to advance. They'll be able to they won't be able to stop. And one thing I will say is that it's presented an incredible opportunity for reverse mentoring. So a lot of the younger and junior staff and the organizations have the opportunity, myself included, has had the opportunity to really mentor and kind of create what this virtual experience and platform looks like for an organization. And like, you know, what is a virtual Zoom meeting? What is our protocols? And we've really been kind of elevated to really show senior executives, like, you know, we can think at the strategic level when given the opportunity. And so when it comes from a talent perspective, it's an amazing opportunity for your younger talent or your mid-year talent to really shine and really take advantage and really show what you're capable of and what you're made of, and that you do have the capability to lead at a higher level when granted the opportunity. So I will also, so if you are a little more senior in your career, do not be ashamed, because our senior executives, they were not ashamed. They were like, we don't know what we're doing. We need some help. But we trust our younger workforce to help us get us there, so we can ultimately continue doing the work that we have to do.
These are just so important. And I'm really glad that you brought up the reverse mentorship aspect, Eric, just because I think that's so important. Speaking, you know, just with my students, we kind of, again, like at the University of Louisville, we had shifted from offline to online. But even I just to kind of, you know, ask you guys this, you know, kind of follow-up question is, you know, when you're looking at, this is an opportunity for new talent or mid-level talent to shine with these new skill sets. And so we have a few students, you know, here in, you know, the audience, and I'd be interested to hear your guys' perspective of, like, based on working from home, utilizing these tools, being able to kind of coordinate with Microsoft Teams, like, what do you think are kind of the new marketable skills that PR professionals, you know, coming out from college into the workplace need to have? And so will you guys be looking, as, you know, executives in the field, are you going to, like, what are things that will you be looking for, you know, for the talent coming through in terms of these new collaborative remote working and digital skills?
One thing I will point out too, even entry level, never be afraid to speak up. You have great ideas. This is an unprecedented time. And my mother always used to say, there's always opportunity, always opportunity. And, you know, always speak up. If you have an idea, you speak up. It's just that thinking differently, thinking outside of the box. You know, our generation and those younger, you're so tech savvy, and these executives are not that tech savvy. Okay, you be like, oh, well, we can do this, and then you take the initiative. You know what? I'll run the project. I'll run the meeting. You know, to be able to put yourself in that position of you're showing that you're thoughtful, you're strategic in your thinking, and that you can be trusted to handle these high level things that, you know, especially with technology, because some of them are like, I don't even know, you know, how do I collaborate on this whiteboard? You know, those things. Offering to do, you know, even one-on-one sessions, you know, where you walk them through different things with technology or how to better utilize. Like, some people didn't even know that you can have an option in your Zoom to have like a private meeting. So we would have this big group meeting, and I could click on somebody's name and go to a private room, and we would disappear from this group chat and go into a private room to be able to talk. And then when we exit that, we're right back in the room with everybody else. Like, there's just so many different features and things in the technology and how to better utilize them that, most people just don't know that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And, always speaking up on those things. And things are different now. I mean, Eric can, how you communicate, making sure that you're not tone deaf in your communication. Okay, 1 second, sweetheart. It's balancing that. You don't want to be like rah when people are there's a pandemic going on. Like you don't want to do those things. And so how will you address a press release when you don't have events anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Having those thought processes in place.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. And I will also say to young folks, it is, you are valuable. If you are at the table, you're at the table for a reason. So like definitely make your presence known, but also understand when and where to listen as well and learn and glean, because people have definitely been doing things there for quite some time. But there's also an opportunity for you to kind of insert yourself and figure out what is the next level and how can we enhance the way we've been doing things we've done currently right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say for new professionals coming into the workforce, constantly read and stay up on what is the new technology that is coming down the pipeline, because it may be brand new right now, but give it 2 years. These days, give it a few months, and it is going to be the next hot thing that companies are turning towards to really help advance what they're doing. Look at Zoom. When Zoom first came out, it was just, it was nice to hang out, do things with people, Google Hangout. Now you can host meetings, you can share your screen and content, you can like embed videos and everything. Constantly read and stay and learn something different. I'm an avid believer that one should never stop learning. Mm-hmm. Once you stop learning, you become totally irrelevant, because our world, our business, and our profession is constantly evolving and changing. The way that you make your mark, and honestly, the way that you really move past in advance, is the more you're able to master these emerging technologies that are kind of coming into the marketplace.
These are such great tips. I'm so grateful, Courtney and Eric, for these insights. And so we have a few great questions coming through, and so I'm going to start with Elia, who's actually one of my former students in PR, so I'm really excited she's here. So she asked, while many of the world has shifted to working from home, how would you advise dealing with micromanager supervisors who are not adjusting as easily? So kind of like the challenges that come internally, what would be some tips that you could share on how to handle that from an agency side, branding side, corporate side?
Yeah. So I'll be happy to jump in there. I will share. I'm the youngest person on my team right now, and oftentimes, because a lot of times when you're the youngest person, the stigma is that you're lazy, or you have to keep an eye on this one because he will veer off if you don't watch him. But one of the things that I did early on when I first started working with the company is I keep a running spreadsheet of projects and activities that I'm working on. And I create a space where I take on the onus of being proactive and have a conversation with my manager about, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm saying I need to go ahead and get done this week. Because the way you deal with the micromanager, you overload them information. Give them as much information as they need so that you answer the questions that they have before they even ask the question. And quite frankly, that's the way how you can really trigger somebody to kind of looking at you as a leader, when you're able to not only delineate what your activities and what your projects and what your goals are, but how you're tracking towards the completion of those projects and those goals. That's showing project management skills 101 by being able to do that, doing that just right there. So my manager, when I first came on, God bless her, love her, she was just a little bit nervous, and it was nothing against her. It's just she just hadn't had experience with managing a millennial. And so it was my opportunity to dispel a myth that all millennials are lazy. And I'm nowhere near lazy. And so what I started to do is kind of help her and kind of guide her along the path to understanding the value that I bring to work. And ultimately what ended up happening is I built so much trust with her that right now that she doesn't even ask me what I'm going, because she knows I'm doing something, I'm busy doing something. I'm not just slacking off right now. And when you that, and when they realize the sheer volume of work that's going on, I promise you're gonna get to a point now where now my leadership is saying, if you have to take an hour or some time just to get out of the house or just to do something different, to keep your sanity, do it. Mm-hmm. But it first starts with, you managing yourself and you having all of your ducks in a row, and then being able to articulate what you're doing and how you're getting things done to your manager to kind of help calm that situation.
I want to tackle that from an internal perspective. On that, to Eric's point, one is overloading them with information, but sometimes you have those managers that no matter how much information you give them, they are still going to try to micromanage. And so from like an internal comms perspective, for those that work in internal comms, you work in like HR and crisis communications, especially now, in the environment that we're in, you'll see a lot of micromanagers pop up because they're out of their comfort zone of being able to walk over to your desk and see what you're doing. And it really boils down to trust. It boils down to trust. And I feel like also this time too will not also expose our weaknesses in communications and us professionally, individually, but it will also shine a light on those weak areas in managers, because now you're having to be more flexible than you've ever been, You've got people who have careers, working from home, they have kids, you have to be a lot more flexible. They might take off, 1 to 3 every afternoon and get back on at 8 p.m. after they put their kids down for the night. It's forcing managers to think differently, and they feel like they're out of control because they can't control everything.
Yeah.
And so, for those of us that advise in HR communications, you're in those meetings with HR, you have to have those conversations, because sometimes it's not your team member and not your employee. Sometimes your manager hasn't actually let go of some of the things that they can't control yet. And then that also makes the experience bad from a team member perspective, because I'm a single mom, I have a career, I have a toddler, I'm working from home, my kid is home, I'm having to do school, I'm having to cook dinner, having to do laundry, and my manager is emailing me, pinging me, texting me, calling me, what are you working on? It's those things where, as leaders, you're going to have to push them and encourage them, whether that means having certain leadership development classes, leadership courses that you have. If you bring in an outside agency that can talk to them about how to lead your teams through change. And I talked earlier about the trust factor. Having a micromanager will make you lose trust. You know what I mean? And they equate that trust with their manager to that trust with the company. Like they don't trust you, any of you, because this is a very vulnerable time for everybody. And so, it's also making sure that you are doing what you're supposed to do. You're staying on top of everything, but then also making sure that your managers are equipped, educated, they have the tools there for them to be able to lead their team successfully through this without micromanaging.
Right. And then one more point, for those who are like senior executives on the call or director in the director level, just think about, what precedent am I setting for my team that they're ultimately transferring to their teams, right? And really, people mimic what they see. So it's also an opportunity for you to kind of look and kind of evaluate, do some self-evaluation, see, okay, what am I doing to try to add to some of this anxiety, or what am I doing to help relieve the anxiety before it even becomes a thing on my team? And so I will ask, like, if you are a senior leader or director level and you have direct reports who have, direct reports, think about what can you do to kind of help coach them through that? Because to Courtney's point, this is a totally different space that nobody's used to. And now more than ever we need the space for dynamic leadership, and being dynamic is thinking ahead and saying, okay, let me help my direct reports work better with their people that are reporting to them.
These are such great points. And Eric, I completely resonate with you on the millennial stereotype. I mean, I feel like we've been blamed for a lot of different things, and all we do is buy coffee and eat avocado toast. So I love avocado toast, but go figure. I actually wanted to bring up a great question because this ties into work from home from Alicia. Like, we're looking at, everyone's home, in various circumstances, they're going to be working at different hours. But how do you, like Alicia has a question, how do you account for different accessibility to the internet? Like in terms of having access at home with Wi-Fi or being VPN bottlenecks, like what are things that you guys have seen in the industry or have experienced in your own companies on this?
I would say it would be whether, I guess it's the chief digital office, which was traditionally the CIO of companies. The tech and VPN, those type of things normally live in that part of your organization. And that's one that, as communicators, those questions have to be asked. Well, how is this going to work? How is this going to affect it? Do we have the bandwidth? Whether it's rolling out an application like Microsoft Teams, are they going to do it in small batches at a time and continue to test and tinker as they go? Because you can't just throw it out to everybody at once. And so it's also being honest about that too. Not being naive enough to think like, oh, we have enough bandwidth to do it. Like being honest of, we're not ready. And then, well, what do we need to do to get ready? What companies do we need to partner with to help us get ready? Those would be the things that I would say it definitely accounts for accessibility. It will absolutely help a ton in the productivity in the organization that you work in and the company that you work for. Not having any downtime, I haven't had one moment of downtime. My computer, my VPN, I haven't had one issue, and it's made the transition so seamless to be from in the office at home, and there's no interruption to what you're doing.
Yeah, right now it's such an incredible time for communicators, right? Because the thing we said on the call is that we have the opportunity and the responsibility, if you will, to ask tough questions. And so when requests comes our way to communicate different things internally, that is our opportunity to one, ask, okay, making sure we are inserted into the conversation before it's a rollout, so we can help think through what the rollout strategy looks like. And then we also have opportunity to ask ourselves the question, okay, ask our teams the question, did we think about the contingency plan if something does not go right? And a lot of times project managers, I know from personal experience at utilities, they're trying to get the project done. They're attracted towards getting the project done. A lot of times it's like, this is plan A and possibly a plan B, but as communicators, it's our position to figure out, help them think through plan A, B, C, and D, and even beyond that, because if something goes wrong, you need to be able to pivot, and you need to be able to have something to pivot to and communicate about, because once it goes wrong, everybody comes back to the communicator to help them understand what's going to happen. And so for our company, it is amazing just to see those pure collaboration to make sure that all of our technology is working. I know one of the first things that happened is that when we knew we were moving to a virtual, like moving everybody to work from home, they literally, all of our part-time IT professionals became full-time IT professionals, and they really staffed up our help desk and our just our entire IT team, just to ensure that employees had the support they needed to be successful in their roles. Now, I'm not blind to the fact that some of you may be dealing with IT teams of 2 or 3 or maybe less than 10. What I would say is, and one thing we've had to do even in my organization, is be patient and not put too much stress, because they're employees and they have families and they're going through this pandemic just like we are. And so if it is a bit of delays, it's really just understanding, okay, what help does that professional need, and like what help does this team need to be successful and helping us be successful, and that's where you really foster collaboration, because then you might find that there's some pieces of the problem that other groups can kind of help solve.
Great points. And so what I want to do is we have time for one more question. So I know Corey kind of is. She has a question here that I think really nicely ties into what I will have planned to ask you both. So what are, like, to kind of finish up the conversation, what are new strategies that 2020 has brought to PR professionals? And is there any PR practices that will never be the same, or there's some that come up? And Corey was kind of in her question, kind of looking at data collection, how much, people are willing to, give information to companies nowadays, like online. And so I'd be interested to hear like what you both think about kind of new strategies that PR professionals need to have going forward.
You can start that one off, Eric. I took the last one.
No problem. I would definitely say, it's from a data perspective, is understanding not only what the trends are in your industry, particular industry, but understanding how a pandemic or just how you are ready to shift, right? I know for Pepco, we were planning on launching an energy efficiency campaign that was going to be a contest, and we were going to have like all these elected officials join in. We're going to have different winners and groups from residents and businesses and schools, and everybody be able to compete, participate in the contest. We were planning on having festival presentations and engagements and things like that. But when we found out that this was a real issue, we've had to pivot that whole major contest idea and really work with our agency to figure out how do we repackage it to a pledge. So we launched the Energy Efficiency Pledge that really had all of the themes and the elements that we wanted in that overall contest into something that was still very impactful and something that was also even very timely and needed, because it gave our customers something fun and innovative that they can kind of shift their attention toward during this time. And so I say all that to say is our skill is, when we have our traditional campaigns and our traditional solutions, our traditional ideas, they kind of move the needle forward. Now more than ever, we need to make sure we're also having our digital plan backed up. So if we do need to pivot, we have the ability to do so. So everything traditional, you must match it with the digital.
Yeah, I agree. And then to Eric's point, you do have to be aware of the trends. I've seen already, just being a consumer, being a spectator, just always digging into information, people are already changing how much they want to share about themselves. I've been working with one of our SABs, our Strategic Aligned Businesses, SecureWorks, and doing a podcast and stuff with them where people are talking about security and not only how to protect yourself as a consumer, but how your company, how your organization needs to have the right tools in place to protect their team members. Because, when you're home, you have completely opened yourself up, you've completely changed the ball game, and people are very weary, and rightfully so, of what information that they're sharing online about themselves. And so you have to be able to be flexible. That's one thing I would say, like, be flexible. This is causing everybody to think differently, and I think thinking differently is good. Sometimes doing something one way for so long, you get the excuse of, well, this is the way it's always been done, but it's always like, well, isn't there a better way? Is there a way we can do this better? Is there a way that we can be more efficient? Is there a way that we can get the same result with less work? Like, it's forcing everybody to think about what we do. And the traditional way is like out of the window. Like, you can't even do half the traditional stuff anymore. We were supposed to have had Dell Technologies World in May last month at the very beginning. It was rescheduled. It's going to be online now. Like, you are having events online. So that means how you roll out any launches or offerings to customers, services that you're doing or services that you're offering, initiatives, to Eric's point, like how you're shifting. How easy are you to pivot? If you play basketball, you hit the little pivot. You know what I'm saying? Like, how quick can you pivot to be able to satisfy the need of communicate? It's completely different. I mean, even what we're doing right now, like, all of us should have been in Morgantown, and now we are online. How quick can you pivot? And so just, keeping those things in mind, as you're helping, as you're communicating, always asking the tough questions. And to Eric, continue to ask them. To ask them. Your communications need to be clear and simple. Like, if they got a whole lot of questions and you didn't do it right, and repeat. If it's the health and safety of your customers and your team members, we're standing strong together, our customers are first. that whatever mission that you guys have, that you have helped them come up with, that can tie everyone in the company, the customers, partners, and the community into what they're doing, you know, you have to continue to drive that forward. Yeah.
These are such great insights, and I really want to take a moment to thank Eric and Courtney, both of these. Like, this has been like a whirlwind of amazing ideas, perspectives, and best practices that I know everyone who has joined us today and who will be viewing the replay is going to really, really, you know, take tons of notes. And I know I'm going to be looking at the replay as well. So we are at time at 1 o'clock. So thank you all so much for joining us today. And again, special thanks to Courtney and Eric for everything you're doing in the industry and sharing your knowledge and expertise with all of us. So be sure to, of course, visit integrate.wvu.edu for upcoming sessions, recordings, of course, from previous episodes, and to subscribe to receive updates. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us.